carburetor problems or ignition.
Right,
yes, right. Yes, I said that
Except on the aircraft tractor.
Except on the aircraft. Well, we have that 5% that, well,
the brand new carburetor was all gunked up.
But I think a lot of people
from China.
No, it was actually the carburetor was probably 30 years old, but brand new motorcraft. But it sat for 25 years, and it just gunked up. And the lovely Ford engineers put this little valve thing right in the bottom, so all the dead bugs and coon shit runs right down in there, and it was all rusted up and stuck. And
But I believe
But normally it's ignition failure because of the daintiness of ignition systems.
What these things do is kind of amazing, and I think that people, and we want to simplify this because I do electrical work for a profession, and I understand a lot of it. I think a lot of people that really understand electrical theory understand this, which is and it's once again not to be insulting, but it's difficult for people to get this. And
I'm offended.
Anyhow, electrical people tend to have this really bad habit. I'll be the first one to admit it. Like, what do you mean that you don't understand how this all works? And everyone's like, it's like, what was the old bars in the middle of the night when the TV station went on?
Oh, bars and
the color. It was like, 2 a.m. Because if somebody understands it, sometimes we get that way that we don't realize it. So we kind of want to simplify this. And a lot of what this does is this very, very dainty spark is doing a tremendously big job.
Right.
And people, and a lot of the younger guys don't understand, once again, we put the spark at 14.7 pounds atmosphere, which is out in the frame. That will jump that.
Right.
Okay. You put that in the combustion chamber, that's a different story. What's happening in there? Under compression. As we compress air, like you said, it gets harder to jump that spark. And especially in high tension and low tension, you can a little bit on low tension. You can't put a meter on it. It's not like you can put a meter on and say, I'm producing 10,000 volts. So this gets really, really difficult for people to understand.
Well, I think people overcomplicate it too, as to what like a magneto is doing.
Yes.
Because they're so used to, you were saying the younger generation has the Predator motors, which are pretty well foul-proof.
Yeah.
I see a lot of the older guys that grew up in the 60s and 70s that were messing around with muscle cars that are trying to take that knowledge of a distributor and a coil and apply it to something like this, where they got a whole crapload of voltage that they just at their disposal from a coil, and their timing's off, or the air fuel mixture's off, or whoever said it, start with the simplest thing first.
Well, and that's the thing. I think even my hobbies tend to end in 1950. That's where I stop, and I don't. Yeah. I have a basic understanding of some of the 70s stuff, because when we got into high energy coils and stuff, things really changed around, and I'm not an expert in today's stuff.
So spread across the garage.
Yeah, we've got a lot of power in today's stuff. That's why we don't change spark plugs, because we're burning a lot of that crap off. You know what I mean? It's like
it never develops.
It never develops.
The mixture ratio is so perfectly
The
controlled.
confuser's making it.
It just never gets rich.
Right.
So I'm gonna limit this to say 1950, and the fact that a battery and coil still will do a lot more than these will, because you have that constant source of energy. Unless the battery's dead, you have that constant source of energy there. So you get away with a lot more on battery and coil. Yeah, okay, the points corrode, you go and clean them up, and away you go. But when you look at what this does sitting here, there's no stored energy. It's not a battery or anything like that. It's ready to make a spark. It does an impressive job, and I'm always impressed by that, because
But it's like a gun though too. It ain't gonna work until you pull the trigger.
Right. Yeah. Right. But it does an impressive amount of work for having no stored energy. It doesn't have a big capacitor, a big battery bank. So it's amazing to me.
Yeah, it has to be timed precisely to do what it needs to do.
Because
at the required time.
But the motion of these is very tricky. Because
that's what I mean. Like you were saying about Webster, timing a Webster, so when the points are open,
it's an oscillating mag.
And when the mag's oscillating and the points are open, you got optimal spark.
And it boils down to timing, and the biggest problem with a lot of this stuff, it's mechanically worn out.
Yeah.
And that's and that's the battle that's really hard to fight, and that's why I think a lot of these younger guys get frustrated. And a Wico is good, but I'm going to be full and honest. I bought the $400 Jaeger off Marketplace this winter just because I had to buy a $400 Jaeger, and it was really worn out. And that engine almost got shot at the Russians because it was so pathetic to try to get this thing to work. I'll be honest with you. And it's like, I know what it does, but it's like what happened is the mag bracket was broken off. And I did my due diligence to get that thing brazed back together, and that thing's still off. And it is changing that whole engine around that it will barely make a spark.
Just go out here and buy a $40 bracket.
I did get it. Well, I did. It's already taken care of.
I just sold you one.
It's been handled. It's been handled. But one of the other problems is...
Do you want a hot tube for one?
No, we haven't got to that point yet.
They're here.
No, that's all right.
Bill's got them. I'll bring one down to you.
Okay, all right. But one of the things with the Wico EK...
I want one.
Oh, we're having lust over here.
Anyway.
Wico EK. What really is affected, too, is the fact that you can put this thing on a workbench and you can put a wire and you can snap that thing with a screwdriver and that'll make a horrendously great spark. I would never want to do magneto repair because you can have that thing set up so properly and you're going to send it out to an engine that is not set up or has worn parts or out of alignment.
And
that
they'll
thing
be pissed off at you for, why don't my mag work?
Yeah, it's not the trip is worn. It's not tripping correctly. It's not opening far enough. It's not open equally.
Yep. It's not hidden.
You're fighting the
And
person
there's a lot of good
there.
YouTube videos, believe it or not, on Wico EK Magneto stuff. That Shop Dog Sam, I can't hardly stand him half the time, but he does have a lot of good information on rebuilding those magnetos.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. And it seems that it's weird because it's like as much as I like Hercules, it seems like the mag drive mechanisms in Hercules Wico are just horrible.
Yeah.
Where on like a horse and a half M with a Wico, that thing's like virtually bulletproof. You pull that thing out of the barn, clean the points, and away it goes.
Right.
It's just amazing.
That trip finger.
What's that?
The stress wear on the trip finger spring is what does a lot.
Yeah.
Because it won't trip right.
Yep.
They're so finicky.
And the other thing is, this is one of the things is, I don't know if you want to do like the close up at this point. Close up hand model.
Please stand by. The trouble is not your set. If this was an actual emergency, you would have been told where to tune in your local area. Remember, this was only a test.
This is an emergency. Oop, here we come over here.
You can edit all that out.
Oh, I think we're good.
Keep talking.
I think it's awesome.
You ready? You good? You good?
Oh, knocked your water over.
Oh, damn.
Oh, he broke his water. Got taken to the hospital.
All right.
All right. One of the things that it really is important with this, and it gets really, once again, overcomplicated, is a lot of times the points come out of adjustment on a Wico. And obviously, this is something where we want to clean the points. And once, like you said, Kyle, there's plenty of white videos on YouTube about this. But your points need to be clean.
Those free little nail files you get at fairs and stuff work great.
They work great.
Yeah.
So that's an important part. The other important part is a lot of the condensers take a shit.
Right.
So we got to put a new condenser in it. And I'm not going to cock it open, but basically the easiest way to set up points is to stick a screwdriver in here and get yourself 2 3/32 drill bits and put the 3 3/32 drill bits right in there, and your point should just about be opening with those 3 3/32 drill bits in there. And that will get you pretty well established on a Wico.
That's correct.
I had a kid that got just almost belligerent with me on one of the Facebook sites about the fact that this can't be wrong. I can't. And I said, check your points. And he said, he actually manned up and said, you were right.
Yeah.
Because the point
And that's
adjustment.
another thing with this generation, too. They have a hard time accepting that they were wrong.
Oh, yeah.
I mean,
oh, yeah. Some of these, it's just like, and you're not, once again, I try not to belittle anyone. Because
absolutely not.
You don't need to be an electrical engineer to understand these. It's basically a lot of basic mechanics and it's adjustments.
New people, it's a generational thing, but people in this hobby, they want advice, but when they're given advice, some people, when they're given the advice, they want to get all offensive and shit by it because, that can't be right. Well, I'm sorry, but I'm going to take advice from Kyle or Mike 9 times out of 10 than I am Bobby Joe off the street. They know. If I don't know something, I'm going to ask. I mean, there's been times I've told Murphy here and there and say, "Hey, what would you do?"
Yep.
He said, "Well, dumbass, this is what you would do
Go to
first."
Buc-ee's.
No, don't go to Buc-ee's.
Well, and that's the other thing, Kyle, and that's a very good point. That's what I wanted to bring with this because I've been very, very fortunate because I started collecting engines when I was 20 years old.
Right.
You don't know Kirk Taylor, you know Kirk, and I know Chase knows Kirk. And Kirk has been a great mentor to me. Right. Okay. And this was, I've had a lot of knowledge. You've been a great mentor in the theory end of everything too. Between the both of you, you really tie a lot of this together. And people don't have access to that. You know what I mean?
And see, that's like me. I started in this hobby with nobody. Like my grandpa, my dad, nobody was into it. Yep. And so I was just I threw myself into it, and then I've learned from there. And I call people all the time. Where I got you, I got Mike, I got Justin, Chris. Yep. I got people, like a network that I can call or talk to and say, hey, what would you do? And it's usually 9 times out of 10 or 9.5 times out of 10, it's the easiest thing ever.
Oh yeah.
Oh, dumbass! Why didn't I think of that? You know.
Oh, you'll think yourself into a corner with some of this
yeah.
stuff, and it's like sometimes, like you said, it's like, oh,
Well, I'm not a machinist, but I'm trying to venture down that rabbit hole of machining stuff, and there again, YouTube has been like a savior for me. I think like machining shit, the hardest part is how to clamp things, how to hold things.
yeah, fixture.
Yeah, how do you hold this piece and keep it steady while you're doing this process to not dick it up? And that's my hardest part.
Well, like as Chase said about time travel, I said if there's ever time travel, I'm not bringing parts back. I'm bringing the fixtures that they threw in the dumpster.
Yeah.
Like thermal injectors. There's probably somebody had a fixture. They put it in the fixture.
Yeah.
They clamped it down. They went and did all the milling and that needed to be done. Cut the
because
seat.
there's a needle that comes in at an angle,
and that was all in the
bullshit.
fixture. And that probably took them 15 minutes to mill it, as opposed to 4 hours of
Right.
clamping and getting it indicated and
Right.
blah 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 blah
I
blah.
guarantee that fixture didn't look pretty, but it did
It
its job well.
did a job well.
But that's why I struggle a lot. And patience is another thing. I don't have a whole lot of patience with dealing with stuff, but sometimes you have to. And like I've dug into these Wico EKs many times. I've rebuilt dozens of them, and I've only had one coil, one new set of coils, which was one singular coil of a new set fail.
Yep.
From the get go, and it was taken care of and everything. But they're virtually an indestructible piece of electronic equipment.
They're a good piece of equipment, but if what's driving the mag open is not right, they won't work.
That's
with
correct.
it. And I feel bad for the kids because I get, like I said, that Jaeger I got, it almost got shot at the Russians. It was so annoying,
Right?
Because it was just wore out, and it was
Right.
just it was that perfect storm of stuff. And like I said, I went through the mag and put it in the workbench, snapped it, and it was perfect.
Yeah.
I put that thing wouldn't make a spark worth anything,
Right.
And for a younger guy,
You
it's like,
probably had it a nickel plated or a chrome plated Autolite spark plug.
no, I ran every spark plug in the world. So
Well, and that, what my go-to with like a Wico is the first thing I do if it has no spark, I'll throw it on my magnet charger.
right.
9 times out of 10, it seems like if they're look at condition, look at the windings, look at the coils. If they're all okay, if they're still shellacked or whatever the heck it is, it's still
Well, they can be unshellacked too, but you got to get the ohm meter on there and check it out.
I don't go that
Well,
far.
I do, and like
It works on a railroad,
I
Yeah.
know, but I'm a dumpster guy, but here I am using an ohm meter. How sophisticated is that shit? But you take what is it, the inside post or whatever, and to the ground you get 0.7 ohms.
Yep.
And then from the bottom to the side, it should be 5 point whatever.
It's like usually about 5,000 ohms. It's
Yeah.
high. Well, and that's the one thing that there's a lot of those secondaries that are open and they'll still fire.
Right.
Because it jumps the gap in the
right.
open of the coil.
I
But
got
it's only
one-
going to jump the gap for so long. It might be 5
And I got
seconds.
one-
That
Yeah.
gap keeps getting
Bigger,
because
bigger.
it burns a little bit off every time.
Right.
And that's like, it's good to mention, like, if you're firing an engine that has the spark plug wire off of it,
Don't ever do that because that's
that
hell
ignition,
on a-
that has to go somewhere,
Yeah.
and it's usually going in the coil somewhere.
Yep. It's leaking where it shouldn't
So
It's
leak.
going to go somewhere, and it just can't go to ground, so the voltage is going to
It's
spike
going to
up
find the weakest
because
place.
the current is going down. So power is voltage times current. So if you don't have current flowing because there's no arc, because it's sitting out in the air, the voltage just goes way up till it becomes a Tesla coil, and it makes lightning. And
Yes.
that lightning usually burns a carbon trace through your insulation.
So if anybody takes
Weakens the
their,
mag, or
if
weakens the
anybody
coil.
takes, because I've seen guys do it, they're like, I got to shut this engine down, and they'll pull the spark plug wire off. I'm like,
You do.
what are you doing?
A lot of them have the little buttons on
Apparently,
the
you
side.
have endless money because you're eventually going to end up buying another mag.
Well, and the other good thing is on that subject is troubleshooting. A Wico EK, if everything's good, get yourself a fresh plug. Nothing that's been in an engine, just a brand new fresh plug, D16, whatever you have laying around. Gap it to 1/4 of an inch. Set it on the engine, set it on the wire coming off, roll that over. If that mag's good, it's going to jump that 1/4 inch gap in atmosphere.
Right.
If everything's good.
You close it down for internal.
Yeah, I have a plug that's set at 1/4 gap, but when I'm troubleshooting ignition, I just drop it and see what it does, because that's the other way to troubleshoot a Wico. If it's not running right, pull the plug out, just tap the gap a little bit, put it back in, because a lot of them that are wore out, you can set it about an 18 thousandths gap and it'll fire,
Right.
just because it's wore out.
Yeah.
And like you said, Avery, sometimes you just have to cock them a little bit. So you shouldn't be
that
like a
bushing-
45 degree.
That bushing in that little, I don't know what do you call it, trip or that
The armature. Yeah.
That bushing is very important.
Oh yeah, that's their war.
I mean, you can't have that. You can't have that thing coming down cockeyed.
It has to come off
Well,
square.
some of that teeter goes back to how those bolts.
And that's
if
correct,
You
but
square it up,
if you
it'll
still get
last longer,
Right.
Not much longer, just
right,
longer.
right. But for the parts that are available, and that's the other thing. Like the parts for these things are available.
Right.
To this day. I mean,
Yeah.
Standard Ignition is still making everything for those, or Marks Magneto, whoever it is. Somebody's making everything for a while. You can buy one brand spanking new if you want
From
to.
Leroy the Amish Mag Guy.
Amish electrician.
It's going to burn in hell's fires.
Devil's magic.
Devil's electricity.
You might be listening to this.
That's his problem. I told him I was moving an
probably out
engine
back
for
with
him.
the
I said,
generator going.
"Oh, there he is." I said, "That's the Amish Mag Guy. He's going to burn in hell's fires." And the guy's laughing. "Oh, I do it. I'll do them all the time."
Well, that's all right. But to me,
But he's pretty good. He's learned it well.
okay.
Yeah.
He's a very good Amish electrician.
Yes.
But to me, the Wico EK is the most reliable.
Yeah.
And then you go to the Webster,
Webster, which predated the Wico.
and it's
Yep.
before the Wico.
Yep.
Yeah, for sure.
I prefer Webster's personally.
Well, some people do.
And it's low tension. It doesn't
they're-
use high voltages. It doesn't have a
Exactly.
spark plug.
They're
It's got
fair.
the-
In my opinion, I think they're equal.
but they still
equally
have
as
windings,
reliable.
and they still have a condenser in them.
They're
They don't. That doesn't have a condenser.
no. There's no condenser.
There's no
There's no condenser in a
That's just a
Webster?
coil.
You
Nope.
never need that on a low tension
Yeah.
because
You're thinking on that
You're
block
not building
on top.
up a charge.
Yeah, I'm thinking of the block
Yeah,
on
it's
top.
just a transfer.
I'm
block.
sorry. Yeah, never
the
mind.
high tension systems have two coils.
Okay.
So that when you break that and the coil, that magnetic field collapses, it's kind of like a ball bouncing.
Right.
It collapses, goes negative. Oh, we're keeping them awake. Ladies and gentlemen, of the jury, look at this. Keeping them awake.
Past my
So,
bedtime.
so anyway, so it goes down and then it oscillates back and forth
Right.
at radio frequency.
Okay.
But what happens is when that's happening, when the points are opening up, that energy will continue to flow through that gap and continue to draw an arc and burn the points because it's exposed to that 6,000 degree plasma.
Okay.
But when you have that condenser there, condensers conduct AC, and it's of a certain size that radio energy will be conducted to ground. So instead of having the voltage go up, if this is 0 volts and you go up to 10,000 and it comes down to 6,000, negative 5,000, and it like that, like a pendulum swinging, the capacitor actually shorts at the ground, so it does buoyance this a few times, so it extinguishes the arc in the points, and that's what saves the points.
Right.
So it breaks that ringing and it saves the points.
Okay.
In the Webster, you don't want to do that because you want to draw that arc out and you want to keep it going because it's
Right,
actually
okay.
lighting the fire. In a high tension, the points are actually the switch that causes the collapse of the magnetic field, but it's not in the ball game. So you don't want that to burn.
See, I always thought that little stupid thing in the top there was a condenser.
Chunk of wood. Sometimes bakelite.
I have learned a lot tonight myself.
Wasn't that the point of this? Or was it for tangents? We haven't had a tangent in a long time.
We're
We're slipping.
nuclear weapons. Here we go.
All right, now we're going to talk about the super where they use
Oppenheimer.
Yeah, here we go.
But yeah, and then like Chase touched on earlier, when that armature comes back around and smacks that little lever for the points to open, you want like a 3/30 seconds gap there too.
Well,
You almost damn near want it touching.
and this is
Really depends.
What's
This
the
is-
book
yes.
say?
No,
What's the book say?
I was just
Yeah.
what we had. Your little stover that has one of those. What's the shitty
Piece of shit, Webster.
white metal
A
Webster
pot metal.
little one?
What do they call that?
the backwards bastard.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I forget which whatever the cheaper one is, and it wouldn't run.
Right.
And once again, it's timing because this has a certain peak voltage at it.
Right.
And we have to basically open those point gap
At the peak voltage.
peak voltage. And that's what you're basically adjusting here.
Peak current,
Right.
folks. Peak
Yeah,
current.
current.
And that's where
Yeah,
your
peak current,
timing.
sorry.
That's where people get confused with those. Is everybody thinks timing? Because again, I go back to some of the older guys that came from the muscle car era, like timing on this, timing on that. You know, the only thing they adjusted was distributor timing.
Yep.
And
Oh no, but they just adjusted point gap and dwell
yes, to a degree,
because that's the dynamics of the reaction of that oscillating. But see, now we're digressing too far away from this.
But I'm trying to relate it to like the things that I've encountered with talking to somebody from that era.
Oh, okay.
That has got into the engine hobby and they're thinking of it as a
They're thinking of a points and coil and high tension system.
high
but they're
tension
dealing
system.
with
That's exactly what it is. They're dealing with a high tension system
in their
And
brain.
you try to and they're trying
they're
to
working
apply
on
it
that,
to this. And when I say, well, you need to time when that mag trips, you also want the points to open, and they'll mess around with it, and 9 times out of 10, the mag trip is right, and I'll go in and adjust the little screw that when the points trip.
Yep.
And the thing will run. I'm like, what'd you do? I'm like, I backed this off a little bit, or I moved it forward a little bit so the points open at the right time when the mag discharges and it makes a spark.
Yep.
And
Well,
then
it's
it's
when,
like,
when the armature is moving the fastest, your
Yeah.
current is the highest, and that's where you want to break them.
yeah.
Well, it's a rotary magneto, rotary mag.
Right when it breaks magnetism.
Well, right there where it gets real, they'll get tough there just for a split little window. That's where you set it. Where you want just past that your igniter to trip. That's where you want them set.
Well, that's what I mean. When you do a horse and a half or any of the ends with igniters, that's a trick because there's hash marks on the end of the shaft. You got to get that. Then you start changing your spacers around on your push rod. And it's like everything's got to be timed just about right.
Yeah, because you only got like a 2-degree window of play right there.
Yeah.
Because those, unlike a horse and a half M, once they're there, there's no adjustment.
And it wanes really fast, so you
Right.
have no energy,
Right.
know. But back to his little stover, we ended up just having, and I've done this too, just depending on where, we just basically moved the stationary point just a little bit, cocked it. And we still got to get back to that and fix that sometime, hopefully before we're...
Well, maybe this weekend.
Yeah, right, in the spare time.
Quit playing in the field.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we just moved that a little bit, and all of a sudden the spark came back and the engine ran.
Right.
So it takes very, very little to do this, And
Right.
one of the things with these is I have you get a single pole, double pole transfer or toggle switch, and the easiest way to do this is because once again, I would never want to be a mag repairman because I can set this thing up on the bench and it'll be great. It won't run on the engine.
Right.
So.
Have that ramp right.
And instead of beating your head against the wall, use a toggle switch so you can go from this to a battery and coil.
Right.
And we did that to Steve's engine a couple of years back. The one that was down here. Never mind. The senility setting.
drawing a blank.
So, yep. Once again, get it running on a battery and coil, and then switch to this and see if it'll run.
Right.
And then you start making your adjustment here, and then all of a sudden you'll go to the mag and it'll run.
Right.
And that's where your spot needs to be. And that spot might not be where the manual says it is. That might not be where you think it is. It's just, once again, you have to take the fact that most of these things are wore out.
Now, if you're switching between a magneto such as that or going to a battery and coil, are you switching to where the battery and coil could feed into the mag?
No, that's why you get a single pole, double throw toggle switch.
Okay.
So the one lead comes off of this, goes to the center of the switch. One wire goes to here.
You don't want battery voltage.
You don't want battery voltage to this one.
coming
They
in.
don't
the
play
mag.
well together.
Yeah.
If you leave it on too long, it'll smoke them.
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
So it's just one of those handy things. It's like, and you can sit there and when it's a good hot humid day and you're trying to switch back and forth, you'll find out these things do have a little bit of ass to them because they will get your attention.
Oh, yeah.
A low
So,
tension rotary
yeah.
mag will lay out pretty good.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, you deal with mags quite a bit with working for Zach. I mean, you helped me with that. Those AB33s kind of.
Yeah, I learned that.
AB33s, that's the ones that has a condenser in them.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
AB
the armature, you got to take the whole
Yeah.
armature apart to get them out. It's a great
Yeah.
time.
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah, Bosch's, the Germans weren't very good on that one.
They weren't good in the Second World War either,
It's
but
through the pain and suffering I've learned to love them, and I'm quite a fan of an AB33 personally.
really. I don't deal with a whole lot of those.
They're not a bad mag if they work. If they don't work, then they're a pile
And
of
then you
crap.
got hot tube ignition as well. You heat the glow plug.
Nickel,
basically.
yep.
The nickel rod.
Nickel rod, glow plug, whatever. Heat that up to a certain degree or a certain extent. That your timing and everything is based in that. But that's a whole nother can of worms.
But it still is, the tube is so hot
Yeah.
that it actually ionizes the gas air molecules that go up there, and
Right.
it causes the reaction to start.
Right.
Now, when you adjust, I think I have an understanding of this. I did a video on hot tube ignition for somebody that kind of understands hot tube ignition but doesn't. When you're adjusting your length, is all you're doing when you adjust your length is buying more time for the compression to come up in there to make the magic mixture to where
Well, theoretically, because I think there's so much going on in there with fluid
yeah
dynamics that
yeah
I don't think anybody really knows for sure.
Okay, I don't feel as bad now.
But in my opinion, it changes engine to engine because the dynamics of what's going on in these
Well,
cells.
I had a.
Oh, like the hotter the hotter the tube,
It's like, at least the shorter they are, the more advanced they are.
right.
The shorter they are, the more advanced they are. The longer they are, the more retarded they are. Yes. I disagree with the heat to a degree because I have run hot tubes incredibly hot and they didn't change the engine hardly.
Oh.
Well, but it's a time factor
But
of getting the
that's
gas
engine
mixture
to
up there.
engine to engine.
exactly.
Highly depends on the tube and engine.
Yes, because I just got a 15 horse Bessemer running that the guy couldn't get running. Well, he was trying to get it running on a mag. It ended up being there were some other things involved. I ended up having to do a almost 10-inch hot tube on that thing for it to run on a 15. And, I was driving myself nuts because, the kind of standards, like, just go like with a 6-inch. Through a 6-inch in there, it's just firing incredibly early. I'm like, what is going on? So I ended up going to the hardware store and getting some pipe and just taking a pipe and putting a cap on it and just trying different lengths of pipe. And it took me up to almost 10 inches before this thing would actually run. And it finally ran at like 9.5. And I told him, like, well, don't use my pipe because it's just going to eat itself away. Make yourself an actual hot tube, get a piece of stainless rod and drill it.
Inconel is really, really good for hot tubes.
And
Just
make
tough to
one
drill.
Yeah, very
with
tough.
the same with the same dimensions as what this pipe is, and it should run. Make it a little bit longer, and then you can cut it down if you need to get it to where it's dialed in. But that was it. It drove me nuts trying 6-inch, 7-inch hot tube, something like that. It's just kind of everything I've ever dealt with.
Well, I
It's
guess
kind
the
of
whole
standard.
moral of this story is if you think you have an ignition problem, don't go out and think it's like the end of the world and you have to have a costly magneto rebuild and everything else. Just try cleaning the points or something simple first.
Yeah.
Just a few adjustments.
Yeah, absolutely.
And keep your points dry as you can. You don't want to get them all oily or nothing. But
Speaking, since we were on the topic of Webster magnetos, how important is it with the springs on it as far as the quickness to trip?
Very. I've always found that I've always gotten my springs and rollers from the vendors.
Yeah.
Because there is a hardware spring that's close.
Yes, there is.
And people use it. And you might get very, very, very lucky. Or you might not. So it's one of those things that, when you're doing troubleshooting, let's take the low-hanging fruit out. Mm-hmm. But spring tension, I think, is very important on these because it'll get the snap that you want. Mm-hmm. Once again, we're trying to time everything. And it's more of even though it's electrical, it's more of a mechanical thing. It's getting the timing correct.
Yeah.
And I think the springs and rollers from a vendor, whoever you want to use, are the best solution. And like I said, people sometimes will get lucky.
Yeah.
And there's so much inconsistency of this whole thing. Once again, I don't want to be the mag repairman because everybody PO'd at you because why doesn't it work? There's no consistency to it.
Well, and being a mag, just to that point, being a mag repairman, you know how to set it up.
Yeah.
You know how it should be set up to fire.
You set it
send
on the
to
bench.
somebody.
Yep.
You send it to Joe Schmo that throws it on his engine. This is the first engine he's ever had.
Yep.
And everything is sticky on it. If it's a Webster or a Wico EK, and for like a Wico EK, the trip fingers will stick.
Yep.
They get gummed up.
Springs are all the springs on the tree.
Springs are junk.
Yep.
And it wasn't a mag issue to begin
Yeah.
with. He just spent $400 with you, and now he's mad at you because his mag still doesn't work, and it wasn't even the problem to begin with because he had issues with the spring. That's another thing with just old engines in general is they want to be loose. Everything should be loose on them.
Right.
And a lot of guys will get a barn fresh, or I can't even say barn fresh anymore. Guys will get stuff that was restored in the 90s that has sat around and has got gummed up. And they buy it at an auction. They want to go fire it up, and they just squirt a little bit of gas in there, and they're like, "Oh, it's got spark. I'll put some gas in it. It should run." Well, then it starts laboring against itself. You get like a Hercules or something like that sits there and runs like a throttle governed because it's fighting against all the crap grease that's in it.
a clean engine is a happy engine.
Take the time, pull some stuff apart on it,
Lubricate it.
clean the crap grease out of it, and let it. It should.
Put Freol on it.
Yeah, there you go.
There you go. That'll
Freol,
get it.
that'll get it.
Right up.
What's that stuff? A time saver? You call it time saver? Put some time saver on.
Lapping
That'll
compound?
clean, that'll clean her up real quick.
Never used it.
What? That shit's great.
He swears by it.
Every Babbitt bearing I've done, I've just done.
Oh, dude.
I've never had to lap them in.
Oh shit! It died.
Wow.
Break.
Break time.
Yeah,
Is that just a battery going on?
It could be.
Right at Bucky's.
Probably Bucky.
All right, buzz coils.
Buzz coils, here we go. Let's try buzz coils. Are we good on buzz coils?
Who invented the buzz coil? Is that a Henry Ford thing?
Mr. Buzz.
Mr. Buzz.
Mr. Buzz?
I think at Rumkorf, the Russian scientist that was playing with the high voltage step-up
Yeah,
transformers.
'cause we done said that these come before, combustion engines because they use them in scientific.
I'd say
Oh, that's right.
1830s.
They was using it to electrocute stuff to see what it did.
Well, just to get high voltage and make it arc through tubes of gas. And
Well, isn't that all what
gases.
science is? It's just like we'll just take something and apply voltage or fire or something.
Well, it's
in a different way.
investigation, it's just observation.
Yeah.
Like Faraday noticed that when he had a current go through a wire, a magnet was affected. The compass. It's a grand discovery. Very, very simple. That the electric current makes a magnetic field. That was revolutionary. That's changed the whole world. Just that little.
I've never had a buzz coil apart.
You get wax everywhere.
You get wax, yeah.
They're potted.
They're
with-
potted.
Yeah, they're potted.
Do it
so-
sometime, though. It's good learning.
Yeah, the PCBs and it's good on your Cheerios.
Sure it is.
Don't
It'll
get
keep
caught
you
on
regular
glass.
if you run on unleaded.
Or have a
PCBs?
glass insulator. And don't get
Polychlorinated
caught on-
biphenyls. Well, it used to be used in transformer oil
yeah.
because it helped its high temperature capacity keep it from flashing.
Okay.
But it was a GE, like pyranol transformer oil. It sinks in water and smells like mothballs. So if it doesn't sink in water, it doesn't smell like mothballs, you can put it on your Cheerios and only get the shits.
Won't kill you. Just give you the shits.
So
Anyway, but seriously, folks,
here we go.
four score and 7 years ago.
1 o'clock in the morning, we might finish this up.
More about PCP.
PCBs.
Oh, not
Polychlorinated biphenyls.
not PCP.
Buzz coils, yes. Here we go. Again.
Proceed. I'll mute everybody.
There's three different
Hang on, I'm muting
Wait and
everybody.
see who starts this.
there's three different ports to a buzz coil. You get your spark, your
Yes.
timer, and a battery.
Battery, yes.
Okay.
So we're using a battery source here, so we have it's a little bit easier to work with because they have a source of energy with the battery.
They're damn near foolproof
Yes,
for the most part.
for the most part.
As
Now,
long as you know where to hook the leads
Yeah.
up to.
and obviously the Model Ts use a lot of them, so there's a lot of them in the hobby. Thousands of them. And it's always funny when you find them on Facebook Marketplace for rare barn find.
And you can still buy them brand new because they use them in crop dryers.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
KW still makes them brand new.
yeah.
I knew they made them. No, I didn't know they were using dryers.
Yep.
The best one is they used to use a flamethrower in the intake system of old diesels in
Yeah.
the 50s and
Yeah.
60s. And Delco made ones. They're really nice, modern, and they're really
Yeah, the
great,
cylindrical ones.
but they're really hard to find.
I got like 6 of them. I love them.
Yeah, see, they're
They
good.
scare my soul,
Yeah.
though.
Well, yeah, they wake up the dead. Proceed.
Proceed. So basically, a buzz coil. The one thing we have to remember too is it's not one spark; it's a series of sparks.
Right.
So that's something that it gives like the ignition a little bit better chance of actually lighting something because we're not relying on that one spot; we're relying on a couple of them. But one of the things, and this is one of the other thing that spurred me on is obviously most everyone here knows I collect motor cars, and this is one of the big banes of the motor car hobby because this is why you said it looks very new. This was Pontiac coil made for Fairmont for years and years, and they basically in the early '90s they said we're not making any more buzz coils. This is done, and unfortunately, it's one of the things. And there's a group on Facebook that I'll mention the fact that we had one of these Sunday morning dissertations when Kyle went off on a tangent about buzz coils because
Imagine that.
everybody in the motor car club or just believes these things are just voodoo and don't work and they're just pathetic and there's some modern equivalent to it. It's basically just a solid state switching device. And everyone's like, you have to have that. It cannot run without that. And I'm like, no, it doesn't work that way, folks. Because it's like people know how to set them up.
Right.
And the problem is there was a guy at Pontiac Coil that had really good intentions and said, I'm going to make one last batch of buzz coils. And all of a sudden, I think like a lot of people called. He thought he was going to make 10 of them, and I think he was totally overwhelmed. So the rumor is Pontiac sent the tooling home to his garage, and he tried to blast these things out. Most everyone that got involved in the motor car hobby in the early 90s bought one of these.
Right.
And the problem with one of these is none of them are set up properly.
Right.
Because I just bought some new old stock from a collector that's unfortunately in a nursing home, and he had like 4 of these in a box, and not one of them made a spark that was worth a shit. Because what you need to do is, and I don't know if this might be close-up time.
I was waiting on it.
You're waiting on it.
You got to set the points.
Well, the points, setting them is, and everyone has a different opinion about this. It's like motor oil and religion. Some of these like Model T guys get really fanatical about this stuff, and I'm like, and I wish Kirk was here because once again, this is one of those things I learned from Kirk. It's like basically
Greg Thompson,
The guy in California.
cast iron. Sorry,
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. That's all right. We've been through this the whole
Glad you
night.
said it 'cause it was gonna drive
Now we're going to brazing, back to brazing. Now back to buzz coils. Here we go. So
For some reason, Thompson guns just come in.
Thompson guns, and now we're going to go to machine guns.
Don't get me started.
The
Don't
ADD
get it
is strong.
started. So basically, there's a little rivet here, and basically what I found on every one of those coils, it's riveted too tightly.
Oh, really?
Yes, and that's your dwell time.
Right.
Because most people, and this is one of my banes of the motor car hobby, everyone looks at dwells on a timer but doesn't realize that there's dwell on a buzz coil. And when that rivet is too tight, those contacts open instantly,
Right.
and that does not make a good spark.
Right.
So one of the secrets is you take the points off, you take a little punch or something, and just get a little bit of pressure and give it a tap. And all of a sudden, that will flex. You can see it there.
Yep.
And that delays that opening just by a fraction of a second, which saturates the coil, gives you a hell of a lot better spark. And that's all it boils down to.
And this is a step-up transformer.
Yes.
The circuit
Down on it, it goes
with the
down
points
with it.
on it
Yeah.
is creating
what it is.
current in a
Yes.
primary.
Yep.
And then when the points break and that primary coil magnetic field collapses, it induces the high voltage in the secondary.
Yep.
This is
Which
a good
is
one.
high enough to.
Yeah.
to
That one's a hot. I got nailed when we were
Yeah,
trying to
yeah.
use something that we shouldn't have been using it for.
Oh, is that what you were
Yeah, that
finding
got
last
me
night?
hard.
Is that one?
So
Yeah,
I have a couple of those that were made for fence chargers. They've got
Yeah.
the little ball kicks back on them.
Yep.
I love those things.
Yeah.
They're fun to take to a show and like.
Oh, that's
hey,
a Model
watch
T
this.
one there.
Yeah. But like I said, my friend Kirk, who obviously can't be here tonight, unfortunately, always made the comment about buzz coils is basically clean the points, make certain the rivet flexes, and adjust it till it sounds like an angry bumblebee. Mm-hmm. And that is all you need to do. Now, like I said, there's probably going to be 10 Model T guys I offend because there's these guys that this is science and we have special, and I'm like, just adjust the
They'll
points
have
till
a
it's set.
fancy little
Yeah.
PCB board
Right.
thing they slide
Yeah.
in. It has gauges on it. They'll be
Yeah.
pressing buttons and turning wires.
Yeah.
And
So, and like I said, I had this once again, like the Facebook stuff with the Wicos. This is one of the things that sets me off because these guys in the motor car hobby don't understand any of this stuff,
Right.
and it's like
And
it's like we have to have the modern thing. It doesn't work, and it's like all my motor cars have this stuff in it. It starts really fine because I have a good hot spark.
Right.
The other thing is, and what happens?
And
in
these
the-
are serviceable and rebuildable.
yeah, basically the cap goes bad.
Yeah.
The other thing that's bad, and this happens, that we should put this disclaimer in too while we're working on it, is how many engines have we found with that somebody, like you said, buys a new engine, new to the hobby, and runs to the auto parts store and buys carbon fiber, some modern.
Yes,
and it's
that
like
does not work.
Does not work. Copper, 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 copper.
You mean
know?
a resistor part?
Yeah, they use
it will work for a bit, but the end
Yeah.
cuts off.
yeah, and it's adding resistance where we don't need to have resistance. We have to have.
Because we don't have
copper.
the voltage to compensate for the carbon.
Yes.
Yes.
So on like a Model T coil, how do you know where to put your wires? Like what means what?
Well, on a Model T coil, it sits in the box, and everything fits right onto those terminals. The box on the T coil.
They'll have those little slides on them.
Yeah, and I'm not a big Model T person by no means. Don't get me that, but it's like it's as far as I know, it's a box. Everything slides in, and these pressure points hit to it. So, and I think on this, you just have to, that's a one that's been modified. So,
So the one you got two ports on one side
Yep.
and one on the bottom.
yep,
The one in the middle, there's two on the side.
Yep.
It's the one I'm gonna call it the middle.
the middle
That's
is
your
high
spark
tension.
plug.
That's
Yep.
your high tension.
That goes
yep.
to your spark plug.
That's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
Like what do you hook up to what to make one of them work on an old engine?
The middle, let's just say, and that's a good point, Kyle. The simplest terminal, the middle terminal is a high tension one.
Okay.
And the other two don't matter.
It doesn't really,
The one just goes to your timer, one just goes to your battery.
Yeah, some people get really wound up about polarity and all that stuff, but it's just like, yeah.
It works
Yeah.
both. Yeah, it works both
Yeah.
ways.
When you get into these style coils, sometimes those pins will give you a run for your money.
Yeah.
Then you just get creative.
And also, I'm not a Model T person, but I guess you can go from 6 volts, and that's the thing. These things are pretty voltage. They don't
Right.
really care. Because I think it's 6 volts on battery to start, but then I think, correct me if I'm wrong, you go to 18 volts AC on mag, so.
Yeah.
Now we've been using the 20 volt DeWalt batteries.
Yeah.
Yep.
With the little holders. They work phenomenal. I did have a buzz coil fail here recently due to that. Too much voltage.
Excessive voltage.
Yeah. So I got on eBay, did some looking. You can get a little transformer. It goes from, I don't know, 12, or it goes from like 20 volts to 40 volts, but knocks it down to 12 volts. They're like $4. So you just wire that in, and you still have your 12 volts. So I think that's a better setup than what we had discovered before.
Did you try it?
Oh yeah, it works great. Works great.
Because sometimes solid state electronics is very sensitive to all the radio noise and the
Right.
flyback effects that are coming off the points.
Engine runs great.
It's-
Everything's good.
Well, that's funny too. It's like when you said that too, Murphy. It's like everybody goes and when you're working on a farm wall and you go to set the voltage regulator up and you put your digital meter there, and everyone doesn't understand why it goes to hell because it's like it's got all this like stuff. It's like, no, go get the Simpson 260.
Yeah, there's a
because
bunch
it
of other
doesn't-
stuff it's picking
it's
up.
Like,
You gotta have to handle all that
hello,
stuff.
I don't know. I've got like 500 volts coming
Right.
off of this 6 volt.
But I had
generator.
found I was working on a throttle governed engine, and it was buzz coil, and it was hitting every time, bzz, 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 and that was just wearing the shit out of the coil from that 20 volts, constant 20 volts every time.
It'll smoke
Now,
those points.
hit and miss, or even if you had like a spark saver, hit and miss. If you just hit it just the 20 volts just every once in it's not going to hurt it.
Yeah.
So I
Well,
learned
it's burning a little bit of material when you have it higher voltage.
Right, but-
you're burning a little bit of material off every time. So.
right, but it's not as harsh. But
So then
I
you
think
run
for the
into some
throttle
problems.
governed engines, I think you need to put a reducer in it or
Resistor.
resistor in
Yeah.
it, to help it
Drop-
knock it down a
step
little
it down.
bit.
Or just go get a 6 volt rechargeable battery from the hardware store.
Yeah, but it's so hard to do that. Find those anymore.
Oh.
I mean,
Exit sign
They're
batteries.
everywhere.
I can't find shit
Trail
around me.
cam batteries.
Okay.
Trail cam or exit sign
They're
batteries.
15
Yeah.
bucks.
I still like my DeWalt stuff. I still believe in that. And,
Yes.
I
it's
use both pretty evenly. I like both.
yeah, but
DeWalt versus DeWalt or,
And the little 6 volt trail cam batteries.
but you say you like both, but
Yeah.
that means DeWalt, and what was the other brand you like?
The little 6 volt like trail cam ones and the wall
Sealed
like,
leads.
click ones.
we're talking like 20 volt DeWalt, for your cordless tools.
Well, maybe I misunderstood. He said there was two brands. You went DeWalt, you don't like that, and you like DeWalt.
No, I'm just a DeWalt fanboy because everybody likes Milwaukee.
So that's what the question.
I
so
like the DeWalt batteries because they're easy to click into the little adapter. But then
Better
I'm talking
than-
like the cell battery for like a trail cam.
but better than a Milwaukee. Is that what you're saying?
No, it's just
Yeah.
the one that's coming to mind
Yeah,
for name.
that's what I'm saying.
That's
You
what
know,
Oh, that's what he. Yeah.
I don't care.
Well, you
what
can use
brand it is.
Milwaukee, you can use Makita, whatever battery you have.
DeWalt.
I like it because it's
Hyper-Tough.
convenient.
You just got to buy the Chinese adapter off Amazon.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know all about those.
Well, no, I bought that light. You
Yes, I
suggested
know.
that.
It was
That's
really
very
good.
easy.
Actually, the ones I buy are U.S. made. So
Are they?
yeah, somebody.
There's this little
Yeah, I think
town in
I
China
like
called
it.
USA.
USA.
Yeah, USA.
USA.
Made in USA.
Made in USA.
Spelled USA.
Well, I think we have kind of reached the end of our ignition. There's so much more we can go into
Yeah.
depth with this, but this is basics. And we want.
Are we going back to nuclear weapons? I'm just
No,
wondering what the
no.
next.
Well, we also
Can't you
started. We probably started about 9, and it's midnight now. So
Really? Wow.
Yeah, Mike's about ready to keel over here.
I allotted 4 hours for this, so we're an hour ahead of what I thought.
Oh, then we go back to nuclear weapons.
We can do whatever.
I say we call it up. And
I
get
say-
to bed.
I say.
Tomorrow's gonna be a good day.
I say, boy.
I say. But that's kind of the basic rundown of gas engine ignition.
Yeah. I mean, it's just
in a
once again
3-hour
very,
nutshell.
very basic, and we're just kind of giving everybody an overview. You know.
Yep.
And there's plenty of YouTube videos
Yep.
out there to look at. There's a lot of books on this stuff.
Yeah.
We didn't have good graphics.
Right.
Yeah.
Picture's worth 1,000 words. We went with 1,000 words.
Yeah. we got a couple. We got a couple close ups, but if you had to in the mag world, had to sum it up real quick as far as
Buy a
things.
diesel.
By a bead.
Yeah, a Hivid.
Hail bead. Hail bead. Hail bead.
If you had to sum up the mag, what would be the things that most people overlook, and either A, end up spending too much money, or B, just get frustrated and buy a new mag? What are the things that you think that as a takeaway from this whole thing that we've rambled on about that they should look at?
Well, condenser is good, but one of the things is once again, a lot of times it's not an electrical issue; it's more of a mechanical issue, and that's the thing that's hard for new guys coming to the hobby to understand where the wear is, where the slop is, and I think that's, And like you said about charging mags, it's like one of the things I always do is just take a small screwdriver or something light and just brush up against that mag.
If it sticks a little
And
bit.
so, yeah, if it sticks a little bit. Now, I have a mag charger. Anytime you do work on them, you blast it. But it's like a lot.
If you have a mag charger, every mag gets charged.
Yeah, it's instant. But
it's like, yep.
It's not required.
You can also
It's like
take
if you have a hammer, everything looks like that now.
Everything.
I
Every
have
tool is
also
a hammer.
taken. I got a mag charger, but I've also taken little tiny earth magnets and stuck to
Rare earth
magnets, and
All
That's
magnets.
dirt
are earth
from
magnets.
Antarctica.
okay, whatever. But you get little tiny magnets and stick them on the sides, and that actually works. It'll help fire an engine.
oh yeah,
Yeah,
oh
It just builds up the field in that
yeah,
magnet.
yeah.
yeah,
I mean, it's not a permanent fix, but it'll get
temporary.
You back.
It's temporary, permanent.
Yeah, it's temporary permanent.
Yeah.
But in other words, and that's a good point, Chase. Just charging a mag doesn't necessarily save the world. And I think, like, once again, with the inexperience of these guys, it's like it's not, I don't think of all the stuff that I've ever screwed with, I've never found one that's been completely dead.
Neither have I.
Yeah, there's always something to it. It's always, and most of the time, it's mechanical.
Yep. Unless it's one of those ones that have sat outside and
Or-
all the
or-
windings are just frayed,
Yeah.
and I'm like, you know what? That's just a little past its prime.
Yeah.
I'll put that on the shelf.
Or a Wico that somebody broke and didn't set it back on.
Yeah.
And it's
Yeah.
lost magnetism that way.
And on EK, it's kind of double-edged sword too with the spring situation. Is if you recharge it, it might be too much for
Yeah.
the old springs to work anymore. You'll need new springs.
Springs do wear out.
Yeah. Springs are always a good starting point on everything.
Yeah.
Just get new springs and get it over with.
Yeah, and get the proper springs. Don't
Yes,
go down to the
don't-
hardware.
yeah.
Don't go down to the hardware store and like, this looks close.
The first thing I would do would be clean the points and check my grounds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing is too, it's amazing because there are some engines that have come out of a barn that I have got bought and I have never touched the mag, and those mags work perfectly.
I had a United with a low tension rotary on it.
Yeah.
And the mag was in the hopper. I bought the engine. It was in the barn. I don't know when the mag was pulled off of it. Years and years and years and years and years ago. The only thing I did to that mag was it was stuck, and the only reason it was stuck is it was corroded around the bronze bearing on one of the outputs. All I did was I got it loose, oiled it. I never even charged it. I threw it on the engine just to see if just to see if it would do anything, and the thing ran.
Like it shut down yesterday.
Yeah, it was just sitting in the water hopper.
Yeah.
There wasn't anything wrong with it. I don't even know why it was ever pulled off the engine.
Yeah.
The thing took off and run. I'm like, this thing isn't going to run, but I did it for a YouTube video just to prove a point. And the thing, I was using jumpers with a buzz coil and pulled the buzz coil off, and the engine kept running. I'm like, kind of confused myself. I'm like, wait a minute, I pulled that's really working. Like, all I did was I pulled the end cap off of it, and it's after I pulled that one cap off of it, it spun.
Yeah.
Everything inside was clean. Put her back on, and she spun fine, and off she ran, and it still runs. That thing will sit there. That thing runs so super slow.
It's amazing. It's like some of them are just unbelievable.
Yeah.
Just right.
Yeah. And that's a thing we should probably, instill with these guys that are, once again, coming into the hobby. Like, what we say here is kind of an overview. What the YouTube videos are an overview. It's just going to be, sometimes you're going to get lucky, sometimes you're not.
There's how many years between? There's like what? Probably
There's over 100 years.
there's
of
100 years
experience.
of dicking around with these things.
Yeah.
Just between the
Yeah.
five of us sitting
He's
here.
laughing at us for yawning. He's sitting here nodding off.
Yeah.
We gotta go.
I'm torn.
I'm torn.
Man, feathered.
I know.
I said, boy, I'm feathered.
I'm right. So, well, hey, go ahead.
Well, I think we covered it. Is there anything else you want to add, or both either of you?
Nuclear weapons. Let's go back to nuclear weapons. No, I think we're good. No, I honestly.
Well, you don't want to
was
go
good.
down that path.
No.
Yeah.
No, I think we got a good starting point. I don't know if this will.
We'll see how. I think it'll do fine.
Yeah.
And if the people want more,
Plenty of material.
we'll give them more.
Yeah.
We can. We
We
figured
can
out.
do a phone call.
We figured out how to do the phone call thanks to
Yeah.
him. So we can always phone a friend.
Yeah.
Do a 3-way or 4-way call.
Right. Mike can come over to the house. You come over to the house. We'll call Kyle on the phone.
Yeah.
So
Well, the thing is, too, it's,
I'll leave her on the phone.
once again, ask for experience. Ask, people that know, just, we've got to pass this on because this is the thing. It's
we were all around with the old guys that
Yes.
tinkered with these things. We learned. Me and Kyle's the youngest,
Yep.
and him. We were around all the old guys that are no
Yeah.
longer here anymore. So
Yeah.
the people that have that knowledge are dying.
Yep.
And the way we found the knowledge doesn't happen anymore with the old, like internet forums or just talking to a human. So to bring it into a different light, something that's recorded and somebody can reference, it's good.
It doesn't have to be like 10 o'clock at night. I don't have to keep typing, put 2 drill bits in the Wico EK. That's kind of what I'm trying to avoid.
A little Word document, copy paste.
I know.
Go into your clipboard on your phone and just have files.
It's like a
All right,
picture adventure kind of thing, just set up in a notepad there.
Or voice to text.
Well, we appreciate everybody listening along with us.
Well,
Thank you, folks.
we're at 3 hours exactly. So
We want to thank Kyle
Kintner. Yep.
Kintner,
Mike Murphy, Avery for sitting in.
Yep.
Kyle.
Not
Myself.
Kyle.
Whatever.
Chase.
So we're covering Ohio,
Pennsylvania,
Iowa, and Ohio. So there's 3
Iowa.
Well,
3 states here. So
all the good engines are made in Ohio.
Yeah.
So.
Michigan had some competition.
Yeah,
Michigan sucks.
Michigan sucks. OH.
All right.
All right.
All right. Thank you.
Thank you all.
All right. Anyway,
Thanks, everyone. Thanks for paying
thanks
attention.
everybody.
Thank you.
Thanks for listening. And as always, go out and get your hands dirty.
Goodbye.
See ya.